So when you're strumming,
Yes.
you want your wrist to be relaxed and your arm is just constantly moving. There shouldn't be really any rigid movement.
So finger.
Yeah, so right now for my downstroke, I'm using my nails to I'm playing an E major chord
okay,
right
yes,
now.
yes.
So, yeah, so right now it looks like your arm, it looks like you're doing this. So your arm is stationary. It's not doing this fluid motion. It just looks like you're using your wrist. And this just makes it a little bit easier and your wrist won't get too tired. So you can just kind of use a little bit more of both. I'm going to move so it's kind of like more of like a motion like that, like it's like you're giving a little bit more flexibility here. So even if, like, let's say if you were trying to wipe off your guitar because it had dust on it, there you go. Yeah, that's the kind of motion. It's almost like with a clock, it's like the swinging pendulum kind of. So even when you're not playing constant or eighth notes, like let's say if I got 1, 2, and 4, 1, 2, and 4, even though I'm not playing every eighth note, my arm is still keeping that continuous pendulum kind of motion. Yeah, that looks good. So that's something to practice, and maybe do it in front of a mirror and watch your hand and make sure you're not just getting your motion from your wrist. Just a little bit of both. It's like that. Yeah.
My wrist kind of bend constantly because I try to not to, because your wrist is very straightforward like that.
Yeah, and it looks like you're kind of. So I'm gonna move the camera over here so you can watch what your wrist looks like now.
Yes.
And then you can kind of compare the two. So you see how much your wrist is, like you're doing a lot of this motion with your wrist. When if you use that kind of swiping motion, that pendulum kind of. Yeah, there you go. Like if you incorporate more of your arm kind of moving from that elbow, that pendulum kind of swing, then you don't have to twist your wrist around as much. Yeah, I'm really never doing like a wrist rotation thing. You don't want to get into doing that. It's pretty much, this is pretty straight. It's not tight, but the wrist doesn't really twist much. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That looks a little bit better than it was before. So this is the kind of motion you want. That continuous motion with I'm not doing any of this twisty stuff. This is bad. That'll get really tiring for your wrist, and you could have some issues down the line. You're just still kind of like a 50-50, like loose wrist, it's relaxed, but it's not all willy-nilly and moving around. Okay, so let's just do this for a little while. So that looks good, yeah. So we're gonna 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on my upstroke, on the and, so when I go 1 and, I'm using my index finger for the most part. So downstroke, I use my nails to get.
You don't have nails. You said you cut everything.
I keep my nails fairly short, just out of preference, especially with my left hand.
Yes.
If my nails are too long, it's gonna change my technique.
Yes.
So
Yes.
a lot of the time, like if they're short enough, I can have my technique doesn't really have to change. If they're too long, if my nails are too long in my left hand,
Yes.
I have to almost
Yes.
bend my fingers in a different way so that my fingers fit comfortably and that my long nails aren't touching other strings and making a buzz sound. So especially I've found for my left hand it's better to keep the nails a little shorter. Some people have different preferences though. You can kind of experiment with what you think is best for your playing, but for the most part, when I do downstrokes, I'm using not the tips of my nails, but kind of like the middle of my nails hit the string, and then a lot of the time on the upstroke, I use the pad of my index finger.
That's very good.
Yeah.
And then do I have to bend like the other finger?
Bend the other fingers. For the most part, my hand is just kind of in this like relaxed, kind of curved position. It just, I guess like it looks a little bit like that when I'm playing. It should feel like fairly natural. I wouldn't focus too much on what are these fingers doing, just as long as they're kind of out of the way. And for the upstroke, most often I find myself not wanting the upstroke to be as loud as the downstroke, right? So the ands are a little bit quieter. So that's why the pad of the finger seems to work well with the upstroke. So if I go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Go ahead, do that a couple of times and play an E chord now.
Yes.
So it sounds like the E chord you want
This
there, and then now play it. There you go. That sounds right. So one thing that I'm seeing right now is when you do the downstroke, your finger's still pointed. I actually use my index finger to do, and the index fingernail to do the downstroke also. And then when I come up, the index finger turns into, but it kind of looks like this. Here, I'll point it back this way. So, I use even my index finger.
Yeah.
I use all of that for the downstroke, and then the upstroke. So my hand isn't always like this. It's down looks like this, and then up the index finger just goes out just a little bit. Yeah, good. So it's almost like when I go down, my index finger comes out at the very end. So without playing, it would go boop, 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 boop. That's like an exaggerated picture of what it would look like. Keep going. Yeah, there you go. And then you get a little bit more volume on the downstroke when you do that.
Volume downstroke.
That's good. Yeah. And so now let's see. Trying to think let's let's work on changing from chord to chord. So we're only going to do 2 chords.
Yes.
So we'll do E major and A. And then back to E. Yeah, so now instead of doing like our strumming pattern, I want to slowly do that so I can hear that each string is really being voiced clearly. So, can you play the E chord?
Yes.
Yeah, so do you hear the kind of buzziness? There's some buzziness there. So, something that you want to be sure of is when you're playing,
Yes.
when you're playing chords, if you hear buzziness, so I'm going to kind of try to create, or like a muted note, that means that your fingers somewhere are pressing on one of the strings in a way that you don't want. So you just got to kind of be aware. So what I did to make that, if you ever hear anything like that, you got to figure out, okay, like I'm pressing down on a string and the pad of my finger is touching the string muted. So in that instance, it was my index finger, and I just needed to kind of reposition it a little bit. If you hear buzziness, a lot of the time the buzziness is either you're not pressing down hard enough on the string, or your nail might be like touching like a string. But I think, oh, what is that? It's a little bit wet on your guitar. Is that water? What is that? Or
The sweat.
oh no, okay.
Yes.
So try it one more time and try to make sure that there's no buzziness. Yeah, that sounds better. That's good. Okay, and then switch now to A. There you go. So, do you know which one was muted that first time you played it on A?
I think.
Yep.
Yeah, like kind of I let it down.
Yeah. So.
Kind of ripped.
There you go. Yeah. So something to practice is transitioning smoothly from one chord to the next. So yeah. And then also making sure that your wrist is relaxed. Sometimes like these positions can be kind of weird, but you may have to kind of adjust your wrist oddly, but just be aware of your wrist tension and try to keep it
Left hand.
yeah. And if you're ever having kind of difficulty reaching
Yes.
the strings, something to keep in mind is like, where's your thumb? If your hand's too wrapped around here, you're gonna have less ability to kind of like, this is gonna prevent some things. But each chord is a little bit different, and your hands are different than mine, so just be aware of that, like where your thumb is and how your thumb may be moving further back on the neck. May be to your benefit, or sometimes wrapping it around can help too. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yes.
Yeah, so when you're learning
Yes.
a new song, or even playing a song that you played a couple of times, but you're just kind of hearing that your guitar playing doesn't sound really clear, something that's really good to do is just go through the song, even there. My ring finger's kind of hitting that bottom string. So just going through and making sure that you can voice the chords accurately and clearly before even adding strumming to it. So, for example, let's see, what's a song we could do in this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna, and so on. So just making sure that you can, without having to kind of fumble around, that you can get to each chord smoothly. To make the song just sound more cohesive. And then when you're ready, add in your strumming patterns. So now that we've done that, how about, let's see, how about we talk a little bit more about strumming patterns. So move the camera so you can see the strumming area. So let's see, what's a song that you want to do, maybe just like a 3-chord song, something simple like Hound Dog, or do you want to do that one? That's a basic one. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. So how about let's do it in D. And I think I might just leave the 7th chords out for now. So we just stick with 3 chords. So we'll do ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a, and G7, crying all the, and then back to D. Well, you ain't A7, never caught a rabbit in you, G7, ain't no friend of mine. There you go. So it's just those 3 chords, A7, G7, and then back to D. So let's see, for this song, let me just think about it for a second. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and I'm gonna slow it down for a second. So you ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. So it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2, and 4, and 1. So if you notice, my arm is still doing that swinging motion. It's not going 1, 2, and I don't even know if I could do it. 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and it's just constantly in motion. This isn't the only strumming pattern, of course, for this song. This is just the one I happen to use most frequently. But so I'm not playing the chord yet. I'm just working on the strum pattern. So go ahead and join me in it. So it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and yeah. And even you don't have to press too lightly. So the way that I mute the sticks is I'm barely touching them. And then it won't make like a tone. The strings won't make any tone. So it's a 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and good. 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2, and 4, 1, 2, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 4, 1. Yeah. So go, you ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit, and you ain't no friend of mine. Yeah, good. So now we'll just do little segments of it. So we'll play it with the chords. So we'll start. You ain't 1, 2. You ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. Going to A7. You ain't nothing but a hound. Oh, I'm sorry, G7. Hound dog. so then obviously like practice it slowly like that. Start out just by figuring out a strumming pattern that's comfortable with the song, with the lyrics, that makes sense. And then when you're ready, still keep it slow, add in the chords to the strumming pattern. And then when it sounds good, when you get rid of like the buzzing here and there with the strumming and the chords, then you can gradually speed it up. What I would recommend, like right now we're doing it together, we're practicing it slowly together, but practicing it with the metronome is really important. Because if you're not really thinking about timing when you're practicing this strumming, most likely the tendency will be to speed up, and then you lose sight of all of that technical stuff. And right now what we really want to develop is this relaxed, fluid motion, so we don't get any bad habits. Let me show you a metronome app that I use. Let's see. It's called Tempo. So let's see it. I don't know if they have it for Android, but it's that top one right there. Let's see if it'll focus. I don't know. It's not really focusing on there. But it looks a little like that. The name is called Tempo. This is what it looks like on the inside.
Oh my God.
And you can, let's see. So you can add, if you want to create a new tempo, there's this little plus button right over there in the corner. You click that, you can name it like guitar practice. So I'm just like typing in the name of this tempo. I press done. It pops up there. It's white, a different color on the bottom. And so if you want, you can use this button down here that says tap. And if you just literally tap where it says tap, you can create a tempo by how fast you want to do it. So right now we were just playing Hound Dog really slowly, so it goes, you ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time.
Oh my God.
Da, 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 da. So once you get like kind of a tempo that's pretty close to what you were doing, then press play. So this is, my bad, that's in 6/8. We need 4/4. So also, I'll just show you this on here too. So over here is the time signature. I don't know if you can kind of see that, but it's 6/8 right now. So if you click on 6/8, you have your 4 there. Click on it again to minimize it. And up here, I can't really tell on your, it's kind of hard to see, but here, if you click on the different buttons that light up, you can change the accent pattern if you want. So you just click on it a couple times. That's without accent. The little accent mark goes away. You can even click on it again, then that beat will go silent, which is kind of weird. And then click on it again for it to come back. And you can change that for any of these little dots. So that's kind of how to operate that. It takes a little bit of time sometimes to figure out those programs, but it's a really good one. I use this metronome app a lot. Well, let's see. Any questions right now?
I have a question. Questions. So you taught me, cause I was wondering the other finger why like because I saw you doing the index using index finger, so it was so cool. So I was wondering what other fingers position is about. So you said very naturally kind of it's like that when I down and then up, down. Yeah.
Do you understand that a little bit better now? Okay, awesome.
Yes. And then yeah, wrist, yeah, you said it naturally because I was like that.
Yeah, you
before.
don't want the wrist to move a whole lot. There is fluidity there. It does move, but you don't want it to like rotate really too much.
And then when I see F major, it's kind of very difficult. I have to use like that.
Oh, bar chord?
Yeah, and then but when I use, it's kind of a sound is very.
Is that? Are you
clear.
playing a C right now? Is that what?
F is
Oh, F?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
and then F major.
Move
I
this.
do like kind of
Oh, okay, F major. Yeah, so
I
you're
was-
doing a
yeah.
little bar.
yeah.
Gosh, there it goes. Yeah, so
What is better?
it's bar chords are kind of tricky.
Yeah, so difficult.
Yeah, so they take a lot of practice. So
What do you suggest?
I'm definitely no expert with bar chords or virtuoso. Also, sometimes the action on your guitar, like the space between the strings and the neck, can be
hard.
can kind of impact that. So for bar chords, something when I was first learning them,
Yes.
I thought that my finger had to be totally flat, like that, like I thought this part of my finger had to be completely flat against there, but it doesn't have to be. And once I almost started rolling my finger over onto this side of it, and that helped me a lot with bar chords. So you can still hear a little bit of buzz in there even, but that just made it a little bit easier for me to play the bar chords. When I tried to keep it flat like this, it just wouldn't, I don't know, it just doesn't sound as good. I'm not getting as much sound. I usually try to play my bar chords a little close, not like necessarily right on top of the fret, but pretty close to it. And if I'm playing it way up here, like instead of closer to here, it's just one, more of a stretch for me, and two, like it's a little bit more difficult. I have to press it down even harder. So so I think the biggest piece of advice that I can give you with bar chords is practice them once a day. Like not for a really, really long time, just a little bit, so your hands can get more used to it, and experiment with what's more comfortable with your index finger where the bar is. There's no necessarily I'm not going to tell you this is the only way to do it and there's no other way, but just kind of experiment, maybe rolling your finger to get that bar might be easier for you, whereas playing it flat like that may be a little bit more difficult. And then also I'm seeing that you're still trying to do the bar with your thumb up here. I definitely can't do that. I can have a hard time doing it any other way. But what I'm doing right now, my thumb is stabilizing my index finger. So if you could see it, let's say the guitar neck wasn't there, my thumb is pressing against the back of the neck like this, so it's helping me put pressure against the strings with my index finger. So let's see if I'm going to move this just for a minute. I'm trying to see if so it looks like that, like the thumb is kind of it's pressing against the back of the neck, and it's helping me stabilize that index finger and press against those strings better.
So when I do that, because my shoulder is
Really
kind of
tense.
weak.
Yeah, and that's something you don't want to. If you're feeling a lot of tension and discomfort or pain or something, then most likely something's wrong, and try not to pay too much attention to this finger. I broke it years ago, and it does weird, funky things. It bends kind of weird. But here I'm gonna point it towards your hand for a second and kind of show you.
Yes, kind of stupid.
So another thing,
yeah.
the hardest bar chord that you're gonna play if you're doing that formation, it's like the bar, and then these are in the shape of an E. The hardest one you're gonna play is up here at this top fret, making the F, because when you go down here, it's just the tension on the string's different. So if that chord shape can move everywhere on the fret, and you're gonna have like those are what we call like power chords. It's like that shape will make a major, like it'll sound good everywhere basically on the guitar. It's really useful. Bar chords are super useful. And we can kind of talk more about like the theory of that and how to figure out like if you're playing a song and I need like a what's a chord that's not an easy open, like if you need an F sharp major chord, like you can use that chord and you just move up just one fret, and then you got your F major or F sharp major chord right there. So and so on. So it's like you have your F sharp, G sharp, and so on. So it really is a useful, like once you get a little bit more comfortable with it, you'll notice like you can play so many other songs without really having to transpose them, so that you can play easier shaped chords or open chords rather. But yeah, the bar chords, they just take a lot of patience and practice. But yeah, definitely experiment with moving your hand around more. Try to use that thumb to stabilize the back of the neck, and it may make it easier to do that. But also take breaks. Don't try to play bar chords this week, 10 minutes straight without any breaks. Like just do like little bits here and there. You'll build up callus, and it'll be a little easier over time.
So, as you know, like I can play F sharp, F major this way. But so, what do you suggest to use F sharp this or bar with bar chord? What is better?
The voicing is just different. I think with the F, with just the bar here. Well, one thing, when you play that, you're not going to be playing the bottom E string. I mean, you could, but if that's what the voicing you're going through or for, but this F, you have your F in the bass then, right? So you're not playing an E in the bass of an F chord, like a seventh. So it's just a little bit of a different sound preference. You can play this, and like if you're doing You Are My Sunshine, you are my sunshine. Like that still sounds good there. There's nothing really wrong with it, but you could always if you want like a deeper sound, maybe if you want that F in the bass of that F chord, then maybe you would do the bar chord instead.
So even
both work, just different.
So I thought using this is not good. So I will ask you what position I can use, this one or this one.
I mean, I think both can work. It's just making sure that you're able to play it well enough to hear the strings voice. Like, so if you're hearing bad buzziness, first make sure that you have those top two strings that you're playing are voicing nicely, and then you can go from there and then add on the next string, and then add on the next string. And so you can do that, just make sure it's not buzzy and icky, and then most of the time when you're playing this F shape, you're not gonna play that low E string. You're just gonna avoid that and play the other ones.
And then you play sometimes here, sometimes here.
So you're asking about So if you play the strings over the resonating hole, it's
Yeah.
going to be louder.
Yeah.
So, and it just, the timbre is different. So you get I mean, you can get a lot of sounds out of the guitar depending on where you're playing it. It's going to be a little quieter down here, maybe like a little bit of a thinner sound, really nice, full, open sound here. And then that's kind of a, I don't know how I'd describe that, kind of like a muted,
Yeah, you play
still
a
very
lot here.
resonant, but
You play a lot here, so
yeah, that back here. And I think like when I'm doing finger picking stuff, I'm usually, unless I'm just not paying attention, I'm usually playing over here because just by nature, finger picking is a little bit quieter.
wow.
But yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, learned so much important.
Good, yeah. And I think that's probably
Wow.
good for today. What do you think? I think it's
Yes,
like
yes. Wow.
almost 11.